When a live service game releases, it's very common that developers leave over files for upcoming updates. Garden Warfare 2 is no exception to this. At the time of these updates releasing, we didn't have any tools to data mine the game. But now, nearly 10 years later, we're going to go into the files and see what we can find. Today I'm going to showcase two abilities that I found inside the older versions of Garden Warfare 2 that never made it into the current day version. The first of these abilities was found in the Trials of Nermus update. If you followed the update cycle for Garden Warfare 2, you'll know in the Frontline Fighters update Rose got a new ability. This was shown up in the trailer for Frontline Fighters, but it turns out they were working on a different ability for Rose that was left over in the Trials of Nermus update. In the files this is referred to as Arcane Teleport. All references to this ability was removed in the current day version of the game, so I'd assume it all got replaced by Arcane Lotus. This ability works similar to Scientist and Unicorn Chomper's teleports, but the distance is set to 12 instead of 16 that the Scientist uses. She does have 3 charges on the warp however. You can see on screen how this was going to work. It uses a bunch of placeholder effects from Arcane Enigma and sound effects from the warp for Scientist. If you're also having doubts that this was planned for the Frontline Fighters DLC, the string name for the weapon has CU5 in it, which is the Frontline Fighters DLC. Anything intended for the Trials of Nermus DLC is referred to as CU4. Now on to the more infamous of the two. This is the Future Taunt, or what's been referred to by fans as the Matrix Nut. Even though the files for the weapon have been discovered over the last few years, we've known about this ability as early as 2017. This was after someone data mined the ability texture map from the game files and posted it online. So the original idea was this was going to be sold through Rux. But obviously as the years went by and BFN released, we came to the realization this thing is never going to be added to the game. Around 2019 we all got access to Frosty so we could look into the game files, and we all realised the Taunt isn't even there. But a few years later, someone found a version of Garden Warfare 2 online that was the first build of the game, so we were able to boot it up in Frosty, and there was the Taunt. Now, this version isn't finished by no means, along with every other ability that was left over in this build. It's just a reskin of the original Taunt with the glasses. Funnily enough, this is probably one of the more finished abilities that's left over in launch build. But now we have an idea of how the Taunt would have looked, but the problem is it doesn't really match the icon it has. But along with every other ability that was left over in launch build, this was getting progress throughout the game's development. Now if you look into the Trials of Nermus DLC version of the game, you can see the Taunt has everything it needs to be finished. It's got custom sounds, it's got a custom model now, it's got custom effects, and also has a buff that's left over in the files that would make it have its own unique gimmick. Now the design isn't much different to the one that was left over in launch build, but now it uses the same shader that the Infinity Hatch use. This shader makes it use the green and black combo that's seen in the icon, and this is probably how it would have looked if it was to release. I believe all folders relating to this weapon were removed in the Frontline Fighters update, but even though they're all missing, we're still able to access the weapon. If you look on screen you can see this Taunt weapon. If you open it up and go to the file that I've highlighted and replace it with the text I'm putting on screen now, you'll be able to use the Future Taunt. The weird thing with this is it's an older version of the Taunt, not the one that's in later builds of the game. It's missing the lenses and the glasses, so I'd assume it all got messed up. My guess as to why we can access this still even though it doesn't show in Frosty Editor is because of the case that the launch build version of the game has this weapon in. And since we have the game downloaded, it's technically the launch build version, so the file still technically exists in the game files even if we can't access it through Frosty. Now you might think this ability was just scrapped midway through development, but it was actually near enough completely finished by the time it got scrapped. The only things missing in the Trials of Nermus build is a description and a buff that makes it do more damage. Considering the buff for the Future Nut was added in the Frontline Fighters update, I'd assume they got everything finished for it and then just scrapped it near the end and forgot to remove the buff from the game files. The progress towards the Taunt in the Trials of Nermus build is near enough the exact same as what they did for the Bling Maiden. Both abilities have the same description, just being placeholder, the name of the ability, and then description, which means both abilities were probably on par when it comes to development. They even went so far to give this ability multiple icons for the sticker book, the booth, and also the UI as well. My only guess as to why this got scrapped is because they didn't want the sniper class having extra damage. Considering a lot of the maps in Garden Warfare 2 very much favour cacti and Deadbeard, it would have been quite annoying to have a cactus setting up a bunch of Taunts that just make her even stronger than she already is. It's just odd to me though how they'd cut an ability like this that was basically completely finished with custom sounds and effects done. But since this is basically a completely finished ability, I was able to take all of the remaining files that we have in Trials of Nermus, along with the ones from the modern day, and put it together to make an actual authentic version of the taunt. There's two things I wasn't able to get working. The first one is the debris that shows when you destroy the taunt. In the Trials and Ermis version it uses an object variation that makes it so it uses the same effect that the taunt does with a little glowy effect. The other one is the lenses on the glasses. If I added them they wouldn't have been transparent so you wouldn't be able to see the eyes, so I got rid of it. But the rest of this video is going to be dedicated to a little bit of gameplay of the weapon, and I'll also link the project file in the description below if you wanted to mess around with it yourself, maybe put it in your own mods or anything really.